Today we shall be talking about the principle of maximum social advantage. A very important principle in the subject of public finance given by Professor Dalton and Professor Pigou. Let's begin. See, the modern states are the welfare states. Welfare here means the welfare of the common people. Whatever the state here means the government, whatever the government is doing or planning or spending, everything has to be done for the welfare, for the upliftment of the common people, to increase the welfare of common masses. This is the main motive. The main objective is to ensure maximum social welfare for the common people. So, every activity, every expenditure incurred by the government, every planning done by the government will aim towards achieving the maximum social welfare of the common people. The fiscal operations or the budgetary operations of the government, they affect the economy significantly. So whatever the government is doing, preparing a budget, spending according to the budget, collecting taxes, everything is going to affect the country. Everything is going to affect the country people in a very important manner. The government's budgetary policy and the debt policy, they influence the public life and the welfare of the people. Now, government will do the spending, government will do the planning, and indirectly, common masses expenditure, common masses income, common masses planning will also get affected. So, everything the government is doing, who is being affected by that government policy? Public life, the life of common man, common you and me, that is going to be affected by the government. Our welfare also depends upon the government's budgetary policy. If it is in favor of the people, our welfare will increase. Right? Now let's begin with it. The government will collect the revenue through taxation. Now supposingly you are a doctor. How are you getting your livelihood? You are getting it from your profession, right? So that is how you are earning income. Now how is government earning income? Government is going to collect the revenue from taxes. So, and who is going to pay the taxes? We people, common man is going to pay the taxes. The government does public expenditure. Now, government will have so much revenue and it will be spending on the public expenditure, and that public expenditure, it will be affecting your consumption, your production and the distribution of national income. So when the government does the public expenditure, it aims to move the national income in the favor of the poor. है ना? So if poor will get more income, so their consumption will increase, their ability to consume will increase. If the government will do public expenditure on production, how does production gets affected? There will be more avenues for production. People, they will be getting more employment, more national income, they will have more propensity to consume, they will have more propensity to save. So everything gets affected. The whole process begins with the government public expenditure. Okay, next. The fiscal activities determine the distribution and use of resources from one sector to the other. Ultimately, these fiscal operations and the budgetary operations, they will decide our natural resources, our scarce resources, where will they be put use to, from which sector to the other sector. The public finance plays a very important role in the determination of national income, just as I told you, employment, output, prices, other parameters in the economy. So what I mean to say is here that the basic tool is public expenditure. If public expenditure is incurred very sensibly, the whole country is going to be affected. The rich are going to be affected and the poor are going to be affected. The national income is going to be affected. Everything is based on this physical activity. Then that's a very important thing, that some criteria or some standards should be fixed to calculate the correctness and genuineness of a particular operation of public finance. Now I told you that public finance, the public expenditure, every country's public expenditure is going to affect the production, distribution, national income, rich, poor, everybody is going to be based on that. So it's very important that this public expenditure should be done in a very sensible way. So what is the line? The line is that there should be some standards set. There should be some criteria set to check the genuineness of the public finance, whether it is good, whether it is nice or not. So how will we make out? How will we make out that this particular operation of public finance is very well up to the mark? To repeat, the purpose of public finance is the economic welfare of the people. Why is government spending? Why is this particular operation carried on by the government? What is in the government's mind? To increase the economic welfare of the people, to increase the standard of living, to increase the national income. If this public finance is used in a wrong way, that will create a deep havoc to the economy. It will be crucial for the economy. Everybody will be affected in each and every way. So it's very important that public finance should have some criteria or a standard to design for its operation. So whatever public finance, it should have a criteria, and with the aim. First is that you should have a criteria to judge the genuineness of the operation, and secondly, the public finance should lead to the maximum social welfare. So these are the 2 points. The guiding principle is that the principle of maximum social advantage or the principle of public finance. So guiding principle, the criteria which I am talking about, we take it from the principle of maximum social advantage, which we will be discussing today. When we talk about the net welfare, see, net welfare will come when you will subtract the sacrifice which the government will cause you by taxation. See, whenever we are levied a tax upon, we have a little displeasure. It is a discomfort to pay taxes. You agree to this, right? So we are facing a little sacrifice when we pay a tax. One thing. Secondly, when we gain from public expenditure, we are finding pleasure, we are finding comfort, we are finding the gain. So this is the sacrifice and this is the gain. When you will subtract both these things, you will get the net welfare. So the aim of any government expenditure should be that the people should get net welfare. They should get more of gain and less of sacrifice. So this is the net welfare principle. Next slide. Let us come back to what Adam Smith and Ricardo believe, the old economists. They believe that private expenditure is productive and public expenditure is unproductive. So this was their basic guiding rule, which Adam Smith and Ricardo believed. They never they never believed that public expenditure can be of any use. For them, public expenditure was useless, and what was useful was the private expenditure. The productiveness of private expenditure was so much. They believed that the expenditure was wasteful, the public expenditure was wasteful and should be at least the minimum. Public expenditure adds to the suffering of common man. So it was their philosophy that whatever the government will spend, it will be wasteful. Whatever the government will be spend, it will add to the sufferings of common man. It will not increase the welfare of the common man. This is what they believed. They further believed that every tax is an evil. Whatever tax the government will levy, it is not good, it is evil, it is bad. And also they believe that every public expenditure is unproductive. You know, may or may not wala, there was no funda. It may be or may not be. No, they were very clear in their thought process that all the public expenditure is bad. It is unproductive. Every tax is bad. This is what they had in their mind. Now, this theory, it was criticized by Professor Dalton. So what did he say? He said that all public expenditure is good. You have to give a thought about it. If public expenditure is incurred on agriculture, it is incurred on industry, on public health, on education and social service, it is not at all wasteful. It is very advantageous to the society, and we think that this is right. If any public expenditure is done on these items which I just mentioned, it is very crucial. It is very important for the development of the country. If the expenditure is done on agriculture, the farmers will benefit definitely. If the public expenditure is done on industry, definitely you'll have more industrial production. Public health, the health of the people will be increasing. Life expectancy will raise. Education masses will definitely give you a modern nation, an economic developed nation, and social service. So all these expenditures, if they are done on these particular heads, they are very important. They give a very good advantage to the society. This is what Professor Dalton said. And he also said that public expenditure on social service, these expenditures, they do more good to the society than the private expenditure on luxury and capital. So please listen this line very carefully. One thing I'm comparing is the public expenditure which is incurred on the social service for the benefit of the masses, as compared to the private expenditure which some people will do, some rich people will do on the luxury and capital good. Which one is better? Obviously, this public expenditure is better. This will do more good to the society than a person going and buying 1 lakh rupee ka bag, person going and spending 1 lakh on his shoes. So this is not good for the society. What is good for the society is the public expenditure which is done on the social service. So what we say that the classical economists, they were like against all forms of public expenditure. The modern economists believe that the best system of public finance is that which ensures maximum social advantage from various operations of public finance. This means that whatever the government is doing, whatever operation the government is handling, what should be the aim of that operation? It should be to provide the maximum social advantage to the masses. This is the principle of maximum social advantage as given by Professor Dalton. Professor Dalton and Professor Pigou are the prominent economists who formulated this principle. The principle governs both the operations of public finance. This principle deals with revenue also, and it talks about the expenditure also. They talk about both these budgetary operations in a simultaneous manner to maximize the welfare of people as a whole. So, in one sentence, if you have to tell about this principle, your aim is to maximize the welfare of common masses in the total sum up. The public authority, it should collect the revenue, obviously through taxes, and it should spend the money to maximize the welfare. Their basic welfare should increase. This should be the basic line of the public operations. Now see, when we deal about the public revenue, we say that tax is the major source of public revenue. Obviously, how will the government fill in the boxes? Tax. Tax has negative effects. What are the negative effects? It's very painful, obviously. If I'm getting a salary of say 1 lakh rupees and out of that 20% I have to pay as a tax, it's very painful. What I say is that my salary, my money, why should I pay to the government? Although I understand that the government will be charging everybody and we have to pay for our own benefit, but the moment you pay the tax, it is a very universal truth that it is very painful. It's very, very painful when imposed. It reduces the additional purchasing power in hand. Obviously, if I had 1 lakh rupees, I could have saved or spent according to me. Now, if I pay 20% tax, how much is left? 80,000 is left for me. The 20,000 is gone. So the additional purchasing power in my hand has been reduced. When a tax is imposed on anybody, it is painful, it creates disutility, it creates dissatisfaction among everybody, be it you or be it me. This is the negative effect of the tax. We agree to this? Then we are discussing the positive effects of tax. Now, when the state will spend this money which it will collect from all the people, you will gain in utility. Right? Supposing you have to travel from your workplace to your home, which is 15 kilometers. It is a kacha road. Oh my God, it's so troublesome. Now, when the road is built up so nicely that 15 kilometers, you will be traveling in lesser amount of time. So what will happen? That is a gain in the utility. Who spent that money for the road? The government spent the road. The government spent on the road, right? So the government will be collecting from you as a tax and spending on you back. So this is the positive effect of the tax, that you also gain in utility. The person who paid the tax, he exercised some pain, some dissatisfaction, but when there is a gain in utility, the person is gaining as well. So here I discussed the negative effects of the tax, and then there are also the positive effects of the tax. Hence, the state should adjust the revenue and expenditure in such a manner that, see, the utility is maximized and the disutility is minimized. So the utility should be at the prime priority, disutility should be the minimum. This is the basic guideline. The individual welfare of all the people cannot be maximized. It is again a very universal. तो सबको खुश नहीं कर सकते ना. You cannot maximize the people of each and every individual. Going door to door, excuse me, are you happy? Number two, excuse me, are you happy? It's not possible. Individual welfare we cannot maximize. What we can maximize is the welfare of the larger section of the society, of the people as a whole. That should be maximized, because it is not possible to satisfy each and every individual in the country. So the larger section of the society, if their welfare is increased, their welfare is greater, the public operation is very well justified. This law states that the income and expenditure of the state should be managed, that there should be greatest net advantage to the society, not to an individual person, but to the society. Greatest net advantage to the society. That is why in the beginning of the article I told you it is also called the principle of net advantage. So the basic guideline is you should try to increase the maximum net advantage to the society. The public revenue and the public expenditure should be so balanced that the society in general get maximum benefits. Again, I'm talking about the society here, not of an individual person. As a result of operations of public finance, which is obviously the revenue and the expenditure, changes take place in the amount and the nature of wealth which is produced, and changes in the distribution of wealth among individuals and the classes. So whenever the government is spending, government is aiming to increase the national income, to move the national income in the favor of the poor. When poor will get their standard of living raised, when they will get increase in their own income, they will spend more, they will consume more. So the government affects the consumption, production, everything of the country. Now, whatever the changes the government is exercising through this public finance, are these changes in aggregate effect socially advantageous? If yes, the society is gaining from that change, the operations of public finance are justified. And if the society is not gaining from the operations of public finance, then the operations are not justified. The best system of public finance is that which secures maximum social advantage from the operation which it conducts. Clear? Next slide. Professor Dalton suggested the manner in which the public expenditure and revenue should be incurred and collected. So he told you how you will be incurring the public expenditure and how you should collect the revenue. The public expenditure in every direction should be carried just so far that the advantage to the community of a further small increase in any direction is just counterbalanced by the disadvantage of a corresponding small increase in taxation or in receipts from any other source of public income. So please listen this line very carefully. It seems to be a very lengthy sentence, but we will break up and then we will learn. See, whatever public expenditure the government is doing, and the advantage to the community, it should be maximized, I told you, of a further small increase in any direction. The advantage, it should be counterbalanced by the disadvantage. What is the disadvantage? When the taxes are levied, we feel disadvantage, we feel discomfort. So that advantage of the gain in public utility should be counterbalanced by the disadvantage of tax. So every tax in which we feel discomfort, it should be counterbalanced by the gain in the public utility. This is what Professor Dalton said. This gives us the ideal public expenditure and the ideal public income. Ideal means the best. This is the best way to deal with the public expenditure. This is what Professor Dalton said. The ideal distribution of this total public income between different taxes and other sources of income is similarly given by the requirement that marginal social disadvantage or disutility of the rising income from all these sources should be equal. The marginal disutility should be equal from all these sources. If you remember the law of diminishing marginal utility and equimarginal utility, this is what he is somewhat similar. He is saying that the disutility from these sources should be equal. You compare the different sources, their disutility should be equal. This is the ideal distribution which he narrated. This means that every additional unit of tax raised, the burden of sacrifice will go on increasing. Every time you increase the tax, the burden of tax will go on increasing. and at the same time the amount of benefit will go on decreasing. Benefit decreases, sacrifice increases with every additional unit of tax raised. In this way, we will get a point where the benefit derived from a unit of money spent by the public authority will be equal to the sacrifice imposed in raising that unit of revenue. I shall be telling you in the slides to follow about the graph, and the things will be very clear to you. What at right now, please listen, benefit derived from a unit of money spent by the public authority. When a public authority will be spending 1 unit of money, people will be getting the benefit. This benefit should be equal to the sacrifice imposed in raising that unit of revenue. Where is that revenue coming from? That revenue is coming from the taxes, and the sacrifice which you are making in imposing that revenue, it should be equal to the benefit which you are deriving from that public expenditure. So basically, this benefit and the sacrifice has to be equal, and every single unit of money also should justify this equalization of the benefit and the sacrifice. This is the final point where the marginal sacrifice is equal to the marginal benefit. Marginal here means by increasing 1 more rupee. Marginal sacrifice here also means every single unit ka sacrifice. So they have to be equal. The marginal sacrifice has to be equal to the marginal benefit. It is hence the ideal financial operation reached at the point where the marginal social sacrifice of a community from taxation and the marginal social benefit from public expenditure intersect each other. Kindly shift to the next slide to understand this line. Now see, with the increase in the dose of taxation, the marginal sacrifice of the community also increases. First of all, in the first column, we will be taking this taxation and the amount of sacrifice due to this taxation. So please listen, when it is 1, when 1 unit of tax is imposed, what is the amount of sacrifice? 10. This units will go on increasing, and so the amount of sacrifice will also go on increasing. With every unit of tax, your sacrifice increases, your disutility increases. Okay. Now, and every increase in public expenditure brings a marginal decrease in the utility gained by the society. Now, you will be considering this table with the units of public expenditure. Now, you take this as a public expenditure, and here you come to the amount of utility gained due to the public expenditure. And if you compare this as and when the public expenditure is increasing, now here you will not take it taxes, you will take it public expenditure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the unit of public expenditure, and the utility gain, see, it is falling. When I was talking about the sacrifice due to taxation, it was rising. And here this is falling from 90 to 75 and then 65 and then 55. This is going on falling and falling. So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that when the taxes increase, amount of sacrifice increases. When the public expenditure increase, amount of utility falls. So every increase in the public expenditure brings a marginal decrease in the utility gained by the society. What is happening is a marginal decrease, because you saw here that the utility is falling. So what we will call it, the marginal decrease in utility. Hai na? So if you compare this 90 to 75, fall. Again, this is falling. The government will not impose any tax beyond the 5th dose of taxation, because at this point the marginal disutility or sacrifice due to taxation is equal to the utility due to the public expenditure. So this is the 5th point. See here, if you see, your amount of sacrifice is equal to the amount of utility. So the government will not impose any tax beyond this point. Because after this point, if you consider, see, 60 and this 35. 35 is the utility, 60 is the amount of sacrifice. Sacrifice is greater than utility. Here also sacrifice greater than utility. Here also sacrifice greater than utility. And if you compare the top portion, this sacrifice is less than the utility. Here, you are seeing this? Now, at this point, these both are equal. So this is the point which the government will fix. It will not put any dose of taxation beyond this point, because it will be detrimental for the public interest. Is it clear? Now, if we depict this graph, this table itself in the form of a graph. So here I will be taking the unit of tax here, and the amount of sacrifice. You will consider the first two columns. Here on the y-axis, please take the sacrifice, and on this you will take the revenue. And the first curve, it will show you the marginal sacrifice of taxation. Okay, it is an upward sloping from left to right, and this is the curve MS. Now you please consider this first column. This will be the expenditure and the amount of utility or the benefit. And here you are showing the utility or benefit on the y-axis and expenditure on the x-axis. So what curve will you get? The second curve shows the marginal utility or the marginal benefit of public expenditure. This curve is named MB. It is of negative slope from left to right because as and when the government spending increases, additional benefit to the public goes on decreasing. This is an upward rising curve, the first one. This curve is upward rising curve MS, and MB curve is a falling curve from left to right. Now, we'll be making both these curves in the same graph. The optimum limit of public finance is shown in the graph. What is that optimum limit? It is this point P. This is the point P where I told you that both the marginal sacrifice and the marginal benefit are equal to each other. The MS curve and the MB curve coincide at point P. OM is the optimum level of revenue and expenditure. P is the ideal of the financial operation. This P point is the ideal of financial operation. Welfare in terms of net benefit is the maximum. So the society will maximum benefit at point P. When the financial operations are stopped at M1, at this point, the marginal gain exceeds the marginal sacrifice. See, at M1 point, the marginal benefit is this much and marginal sacrifice is this much. Okay, here the utility in the form of public expenditure is much greater than the disutility suffered by the society through taxation. At this point, at M1 point, marginal benefit is more and marginal sacrifice is less. This process will continue till it is raised and spent to the level of M. Here, till this point, this will be your maximum welfare. And if you consider it beyond this point also, see, if you come to this M2, what will happen? At M2 point, sacrifice is more and the benefit is less. So it is not justified operation at point M2. What is justified, what is ideal is point P, where marginal sacrifice and the marginal benefit are intersecting each other. Okay. The financial operations will also be not economical and beneficial since the marginal sacrifice exceeds the marginal benefit beyond point P. Just as I told you, this area is also not justified. The situation is shown up to OM2 where the marginal sacrifice increases the marginal benefit. Here, sacrifice is more, benefit is less, so it is not justified. Here, the sacrifice is less and the benefit is more. Again, it is not justified. The justifiable ideal position is this M point, P point. Now we conclude to make the maximum net social advantage, the financial operations should be carried up to the point where the marginal utility of the public expenditure is equal to the marginal disutility of the public revenue. This is a one-line detonation of this principle. Marginal utility of public expenditure will equalize marginal disutility of the public revenue. So here we come to the end of the article. I hope I have made the things very clear to you. In case you have any doubts, please feel free to ask me in the comment section. In case you have any suggestions, please feel free to write in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Kindly like and subscribe to my channel. Stay safe, stay blessed.